So the Miami Heat are at that familiar crossroads. Once again, they're not bad enough to tank. Also, they're never going to tank in general, but they're also not quite good enough to contend and win a championship. They're stuck in the middle, and they really only have a few options right now. Right now, you either make a smart culture fit move that can raise your ceiling, that can help you compete in a wide open East this season, or you take a bigger swing that could change everything. And today, I want to talk about two trade targets from the same team who represent those two paths perfectly for the Miami Heat. So let's start off with the guy that the Miami Heat should absolutely be calling the Pelicans about, and that is Trey Murphy. So Trey Murphy is the perfect trade target for the Miami Heat. We have 1 month until the NBA trade deadline, and the Miami Heat need his archetype. And if you look at the Miami Heat's biggest needs right now, it comes down to a few things. One, wing scoring. Two, shooting. Three, they need athleticism, especially on the perimeter. And Miami were known for defending. And when they defend, they execute, they grind teams out. But what they don't constantly have is a wing player outside of Andrew Wiggins, who's a little bit older. He's not falling into the developmental time frame um, with the new path that the Miami Heat are focusing on, playing younger guys like Jaime Jovic, etc. But anyway, he is great because he spaces the floor. He can attack closeouts. He can run in transition. He can defend multiple positions. So that versatility is something the Miami Heat loves. And he could still grow into something bigger. So that's exactly where Trey Murphy III comes in. And let's talk about his numbers because he isn't really just a nice role player anymore. He's becoming a very good player in the NBA. And this season, he's averaging 21.3 points per game, 6.1 rebounds, and 3.5 assists per game. And that's legit two-way wing production. He's a very good defender as well. And this isn't just catch and shoot offense like he traditionally was doing in his first few seasons. He's scoring at all three levels now. He's attacking closeouts. He's finishing in transition. He's making the right reads when the defense rotates. And again, this is not just a few week heater. This is a real leap, in my opinion. And if you built a player in the lab for Eric Spoelstra, I believe Trey Murphy would be that prototype, especially because he loves playing small ball. Um, that's his favorite style of basketball. And with Trey Murphy, like his off ball scoring is elite without the ball. So you can still have players like Norman Powell or a Tyler Hero have the ball in their hands. He's amazing because he relocates constantly. He's always on the move. He shoots confidently off of movement, so he doesn't need to stand still. He punishes defensive breakdowns essentially when they don't rotate correctly. So a huge portion of his scoring comes from catch and shoot threes, which is fine, but he also gets backdoor cuts. He finishes in transition at the rim. So if you put him next to Bam Adebayo in DHO actions or as a weak side spacer, suddenly the floor opens up in a way that Miami hasn't seen consistently this season. His defensive versatility, like I mentioned earlier, again, it's not just about scoring. He's 6'8" with length, with mobility. He can guard shooting guards, he can guard wings, he can guard smaller fours, and he fits in perfectly with Miami because of their switchability, their zone coverage, late game defensive possessions where we've needed help. And that's what Miami Heat basketball is all about. Athleticism and transition. That's what we need, honestly, the most outside of rebounding and a backup big. But Miami, it's at its best when they can get stops and they can run right now. They want to be able to shoot very quickly with this pace and space, new philosophy, and they need to get stops. And he's someone who can help them get stops, but he could also finish above the rim and he runs the lanes hard. He creates easy points without plays being drawn up for him, which is huge. And he could do better with increased usage as well. So he's more than a role player. I think he's special and has the potential as someone who's young, still developing, improving every single year, improving as a shot creator, improving as a three-level scorer. He's becoming more confident attacking off the dribble, which is great. His ball handling skills are going to improve and they need to improve. But you're not just trading for what he is today. You're trading for what he can be in the next 2 to 3 years. And Miami doesn't need another aging piece. They need someone who can help now, who fits in their long-term plans. And Murphy, I think, checks all of those boxes. So the Pelicans might actually listen because they're in a strange spot. Zion His availability is always a question, which we'll get into later. They are kind of stacked with wings, and they don't have a clear identity. And if they decide to reshuffle, Murphy is one of their most valuable assets, which means the price won't be cheap, but it might be worth it for the Miami Heat. So pay for the fit versus the name recognition, and I think that could be a good strategy for the Miami Heat because Trey Murphy in a Miami Heat jersey isn't just a good trade, in my opinion. I think it's a cultural move for the future. The next guy I wanted to talk about, who's also his teammate, is Zion Williamson. So this is where things get polarizing because on one hand, Zion is literally always hurt. But on the other hand, when he does play, he's still one of the most dominant forces in the NBA. So the real question becomes if his trade value is truly down, which reports said that they might be willing to get rid of him for like a Trey Young type package, which the Atlanta Hawks traded Trey Young for no draft picks. They only got Corey Kispert and CJ McCollum on an expiring contract. So if teams believe you can get him for far less than you normally would or should the Miami Heat take that risk? We get deeper into the Heat trade conversation, especially with names like Zion and Trey Murphy coming up. I want to take a second for today's sponsor, which is Underdog Fantasy. And what I like about Underdog is that it fits how I already talk about basketball. You're not doing anything complicated. You're just picking whether players will go higher or lower on stats like points, rebounds, three-pointers made, assists, the same things we're breaking down when we talk fit, roles, and impact on my channel. And when you get your picks right, you could win up to 5,000 times your cash, which is incredible. No other site does that, which definitely adds some extra juice to watching your favorite games and your favorite teams. So, for example, when I'm looking at these potential Heat targets like Zion and Trey Murphy, like I mentioned earlier, I'm already thinking about how they affect the game. So if Zion is healthy, which is very rare, and he's attacking the rim, I'm looking at him going higher on points. If Trey is getting clean looks on the perimeter, I'm riding higher on threes. It's really simple, and it's a great way to put your basketball takes into action while you're watching your favorite team. So download the app today and use promo code TEAM to beat to score $75 in bonus entries when you play your first $5. That's promo code TEAM to beat. Underdog. Make picks, win money. All right, now back to the real conversation because Zion isn't just a name. He represents a completely different path for the Miami Heat. So even with all of the injury concerns, Zion this season is still putting up 22.4 points per game, 5.9 rebounds, and 3.4 assists while shooting 56.2% from the field. That is elite efficiency for a player who creates almost everything in the paint. So when Zion is in the floor, he is still an all-star level scorer. He's a matchup nightmare because of his size. He is one of the most unstoppable downhill players in the NBA, and the talent has never been an issue. The other concerns are obviously the common concerns, the consistent concerns, his availability. He hasn't been reliable. He's always hurt. And trading real assets and picks and players for a player who is not available in April and May usually is pretty terrifying. Again, his durability is always going to be an issue. He's explosive. He has a ton of size. He has weight issues at times, and he has reoccurring issues, injury issues, and that's dangerous for long-term stability. And again, Miami doesn't tank. They don't reset. So if this does fail, there's no easy next year. This is a franchise defining risk. So the case for Zion is the upside. Zion and a Bam together would be a physical nightmare for the NBA. So Zion attacking downhill constantly, Bam operating as that playmaking hub. You have to have shooters around them, obviously, for the spacing, even though Bam can space a little bit. But still, how do you guard those two? That is going to be tough because you can't switch easily. You can't single cover Zion, really, especially in the paint. And if you're going to pack the paint with Zion, then players like Tyler Hero and other three-point shooters are going to get better opportunities. So with Zion, you get relentless rim pressure, something that Miami has not had in years. And if there's any organization that can get the most out of Zion, it's probably Miami. It's probably Pat Riley. It's probably Spo. The league has, this is the league's strictest conditioning standards for any team, and it's a culture built on accountability. So if Zion ever is going to lock in physically, commit fully to his body, maximize his prime, this is the environment to do it. But do we trust him to do that? Hell no. Not in my opinion. But either way, you still need talent. So another reason why to go for Zion versus Trey, he's the more talented guy essentially for now. And the NBA still runs through top end talent, players who bend the defense, stars who decide to take over games. And Trey Murphy is someone who raises your floor, but Zion can essentially raise your ceiling if he's magically healthy, which he never is. So at some point, Miami has to ask, are we trying to be really good or are we trying to actually win a championship? So the buy low angle of Zion is the key part. Again, we've seen star value crash when injuries pile up, when public perception turns, when the team loses leverage. So if Zion's market is truly soft, the front office really believe he can be had for less than what is expected, then suddenly this might not be reckless. It could become a calculated championship swing for a team like the Miami Heat. And they don't need him to play 82 games because that's never going to happen. But they do need him in April, May, maybe June if they could get that far. But if you can get a healthy playoff run, that upside is enormous for Zion. So here's the two paths, like I said, in the crossroads. Path one, Trey Murphy, a smart, young, reliable, sustainable, cultural fit type player who's up and coming, averaging over 21 points, 6 rebounds, 3.5 assists, two-way wing with long-term upside. That is the path I think the Miami Heat should go. Path two, you got Zion, who's super risky, who's polarizing, he's injury prone, is averaging almost 23 points per game on 56% shooting, so he's still good. But it could be very franchise altering if it works. This could be a championship swing. But if I had to choose, like I said, Trey Murphy should be the priority. Zion is only the move if the price is absolutely right. But you still have to deal with his contract. He has 3 years left on his contract, making like 42, 46, and 48 million the next 3 seasons, including this season. So are you willing to have that on your books with Bam Adebayo, who's going to be making 50 million next year? Tyler Hero is going to be up for an extension. So Norm Powell is up for an extension. So Andrew Wiggins even as well has a player option. So it might be tough, but Murphy gives you reliability. He gives you the hope of development and defense and shooting. And that's the route that I think I would go, honestly, between the two. So Heat fans, I want to hear from you. Would you rather go for the perfect fit, in my opinion, which is Trey Murphy, or take the massive gamble on Zion Williamson and his upside? So drop your thoughts in the comments. Make sure to like, share, and subscribe for more Miami Heat breakdowns.